Guys, so this video is going to be a quick rundown of the Obergefell case. I am not doing all of the arguments and the individual justices and all of the opinions because there are so many different opinions. Whenever I tried to do a video like that, it ended up being over an hour long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the arguments and then read the holding of the court. So let's begin. On the Obergefell side, we have that denying marriage leads to a stain of unworthiness, and there is a constitutional right to equal dignity. And they also say that states have primacy over domestic relations, but they must follow the Constitution. And they say that Windsor was clear about that. They also said that even though this wasn't challenged before, it takes time to see the humanity in others. So it takes time to notice the error of your ways. And next, they say that the place of gay people has been contested for decades. And the current statutes back then have made gay people second-class citizens. And states should be accountable for their exclusions of gays and lesbians. They also say that this is a question of individual liberty, and whenever children are brought up, they say that same-sex marriage does not impact children in any negative way. And they also said that legalizing gay marriage through the democratic process, so voting, legislative action, demeans gay people in homophobic states. So like in a red state like Texas, having to wait for people to vote on gay marriage to be legalized is demeaning because that's a red state. They're less likely to approve of same-sex marriage, so they're more likely to vote against it. And if you're a gay person there, you're like, well, can't get married. Everyone around me sees me as a second-class citizen. Next, they also said that justifications for oppressing gays and lesbians just don't hold up. So, by saying that, for example, God doesn't approve of it, it doesn't hold up, especially in the state, because there should be a separation of church and state. So if you're using God as a reason to oppress people, then that is violating the Establishment Clause. Next, we have that marriage is an emotional bond. It's not necessarily for procreation only. It's for two people who love each other to be connected. And they also say that while things have improved for gays and lesbians, marriage is the next step towards full equality. And whenever kids are mentioned, they say that same-sex couples can marry and have kids, not have kids. They can do whatever they want, just like straight people can do whatever they want. And they also say that people can make their own decisions regardless of the decision to marry, just like straight people. And next, there are two questions in this. The first one is, should same-sex marriage be legal everywhere? And the second one is, should a state be required to recognize a same-sex marriage performed and licensed out of state? So the question two arguments are petitioners have a right to remain married because they were already married, they have already built this life together and started families together. So by going to a state that would not recognize their marriage, then all of that would just go to waste. And yeah, there is no justification for extinguishing existing marriages. And they also say that Windsor has said that people have a right to stay married and that destroying marriage deprives children of stability. Next, we have the arguments for the Hodges side, that is the side against gay marriage. So the arguments are the people should decide the meaning of marriage either through voting or through their elected representatives. And marriage the traditional definition did not develop to deny people dignity. It developed for the purposes of procreation. And they say that gay marriage is about kids staying with their biological parents. And fun fact, during oral arguments, Sotomayor was like, she basically said that anyone can be a deadbeat, and I was kind of laughing at that, because she's right. Married, not married, gay, straight, anyone can be a deadbeat. Mom, dad, anyone. I found it kind of funny. And they also said that gay marriage will ruin the purpose of marriage by delinking kids from their biological parents. And they also said that people are getting together and having kids without marriage. And Sotomayor was like, what does that have to do with gay marriage? That's their problem. And then, sorry, I am kind of going into the oral arguments because I think they were kind of funny. And then, I don't remember which justice it was. I think it was either Sotomayor or Kagan. She asked if it would be constitutional for the state to ask couples if they want children before they get married. And if they say, no, we don't want children, then that couple can't get married. And the response was, well, even if people don't want to get married, even if people that want to get married don't want to have kids, they end up having kids. So, and next, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was like, so what if two 70-year-olds want to get married? And the guy was like, well, a 70-year-old man can still have kids, and that should happen within the marriage. So now we know that according to this guy, 70-year-old women are off the market. And next, he says that the state does not care about love, the state only cares about kids. He also mentions that kids born out of wedlock has increased from 10% to 40% since the 70s, and once again, Sotomayor was like, what does that have to do with anything? And changing the definition of marriage makes marriage about adults and not kids, and changing the definition would lead to more people having kids out of wedlock. And he also says that the state has no interest in bestowing dignity, and change should come through change through courts cuts off debate and democracy. And every SCOTUS case involving the right to marry has involved marriage and kids. So it has always involved heterosexual couples. And they also say that this case forces states to give everyone rights and benefits instead of allowing the states to pick and choose. So, now onto the holding. So, the 14th Amendment requires a state to license a marriage between two people of the same sex and to recognize a marriage between two people of the same sex when their marriage was lawfully licensed and performed out of state. The petitioners seek marriage because of their respect and need for its privileges and responsibilities, as illustrated by the petitioners' own experiences. The history of marriage has been one of both continuity and change. Changed understandings of marriage are characteristic of a nation where new dimensions of freedom become apparent to new generations. Cultural and political developments allowed same-sex couples to lead more open and public lives. 14A requires a state to license a marriage between two people of the same sex. The fundamental liberties protected by 14A due process clause extend to personal choices central to the individual dignity and autonomy, including intimate choices defining personal identity and beliefs. Courts must exercise reasoned judgment in identifying interests of the person so fundamental that the state must accord them its respect when new insight reveals discord between the Constitution's central protections and a received legal structure. A claim to liberty must be addressed. The court has long held the right to marry as protected by the Constitution. Levying invalidated bans on interracial unions Turner held that prisoners couldn't be denied the right to marry. In assessing whether the force and rationale of its cases applied to same-sex couples, the court must respect the basic reasons why the right to marry has been long protected. The first premise of this court's relevant precedents is that the right to personal choice regarding marriage is inherent in individual autonomy. The connection between marriage and autonomy is why Loving invalidated interracial marriage bans. This is true for all persons regardless of sexual orientation. The right to marry is so fundamental because it supports a two-person union unlike any other in its importance to committed individuals. Marriage safeguards children and families and thus draws meaning from related rights of childbearing, procreation, and education. Without recognition, stability, and predictability that marriage offers, children suffer the stigma of knowing their families are somehow lesser. Court cases and traditions make clear that marriage is a keystone of social order. There is no difference between same-sex and opposite couples with respect to this principle, yet same-sex couples are denied benefits that states have linked to marriage and are co-signed to an instability many couples would find intolerable. It's demeaning to lock same-sex couples out of a central institution of society, for they too aspire to the purposes of marriage. The decision is also derived from the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, recognizing that new insights and understandings can reveal unjustified inequality within institutions once passed unnoticed and unchallenged. This court has invoked equal protections to invalidate same-sex marriage bans and confirmed the relation between liberty and equality. The marriage laws at issue here are in essence unequal against a long history of disapproval. This denial works a continuing harm to disrespect and subordinate gays and lesbians. While the Constitution says that democracy is the process for change, those who are harmed need not await legislative action before asserting a fundamental right. States can no longer refuse to recognize a lawful same-sex marriage performed out of state. So, that is the holding of the court. I'm going to give you a brief summary of the dissenting opinions. Scalia's is mostly about how the majority is basically overreaching and how we should be worried about the decision basically destroying democracy. Thomas's dissent is like saying that the majority does not understand the definition of liberty, and the founding fathers would not have seen gay marriage as a form of liberty. Roberts' dissent is so long. That is mostly about, I believe, democracy, and it should be up to the states and their elected representatives to change the definition. Alito's dissent is joined by Scalia and Thomas, and that is all about how it should be decided by the states and elected representatives. So that's the Obergefell case. I might post the full version later if I have enough energy and time, because again, that video is going to be over an hour long. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.